Your initial reactions, it wasn't an easy one. Would you say that it was probably the toughest victory that Liverpool's had to play this season?
Yeah, I mean, not at their best, but I would imagine if you ask the players, Liverpool players, it was satisfying. It's those kind of matches, because Liverpool obviously in the first place they kind of make you champions a little bit, right? This is where maybe the concentration level, maybe the power, the true power of Liverpool wasn't there yet. We all know, of course, that they were in Europe, so couple days rest and you playing here again against a Bournemouth side who obviously has tons of injuries, but they have been excellent in the Premier League this year as well. So there were dangers, obviously a little bit of luck maybe in terms of that chance at 1-0 that Bournemouth had, and Kluivert missed the open goal, the post from Tavernier in itself. Obviously Alisson was beaten there. So, and then you go the other way and you see the brilliance of Mo Salah. Obviously such a game changer, and he's done it here really because that second goal put it to bed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just continue on your point there on the final one on Mohamed Salah. That's 21 league goals. That's the same number he had last season, and there's still a fair bit to go as well. And by the way, he becomes, what is it, Thierry Henry, Alan Shearer, Sergio Aguero, and Harry Kane. So he becomes the fifth player to score 20 or more goals in 5 different Premier League seasons. A remarkable achievement. And by himself, he's the all-time scorer in the tables, number 6 now, ahead of Frank Lampard. So unbelievable from Mohamed Salah. You did say, though, very good point here. Bournemouth had chances. Justin Kluivert, of course, missed a sitter. Also, Semenyo hitting the crossbar. There were some moments there. And you could see, Janusz, that when Mohamed Salah scored that second goal, that remarkable curler, Arne Slot and his coaching staff were celebrating big time because they knew how difficult it was today because it could have just easily been turned around.
Absolutely, and the second half didn't start well. I mean, they worked themselves into games. I think there's many differences between Arne Slot and Klopp, but I think that it almost appears to me in my mind that I think Liverpool were much more explosive early, right? They wanted to decide the games, and here not only obviously we've seen some wins very late in the games when they needed it, but also it's a sort of a team that hardly ever panics, right? And as I've said, had to work themselves in because Bournemouth had the chances. Then at halftime, you'd think that maybe the team will finally settle a little bit. I mean, they have in the first half. It's not that they were bad, but I think they never had that rhythm where you could just say, here's the possession, here's the fullbacks getting forward, overlapping. It just didn't feel right. It felt that they're a little bit off, which at this stage of the season will always happen, right? I think we sometimes expect perfection in every game, and every game has to be won and in a way that it's pretty. That, of course, is not going to happen. But you look at a team that's top of Premier League, top of Champions League, still in the League Cup and FA Cup. So games like these are going to come. It's starting to be kind of late in the season, right, where you feel it in your legs just a little bit. And it was good, but nothing more. There's a lot more to come from Liverpool when they're at their best. I think that was for everyone to see. And Bournemouth, as you said, had their chances.
Yeah, and it's to your point, the fact that Liverpool were not at their best. It was a tough Bournemouth. They still won 2-0, a clean sheet. I mean, it's a pretty good achievement. Did you think it was a penalty, by the way? Just opening that dialogue there and the open.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always as a defender, I can always explain it every which way, right? I mean, certainly not intentional, but when you're beaten and you're behind and you clip somebody, there's contact like that. You have to expect that 99.9% of the time it's gonna be penalty. So I had no issues with that.
Yeah, and as we live in the day of VAR, they couldn't exactly overturn the referee's original decision. That was a penalty, but no arguments about the second one. Trent Alexander-Arnold, he came off in this one. I mean, obviously, at some point, they might have to get used to the fact that they won't have Trent Alexander-Arnold at all on the pitch. Is that a worry for you? Anything specific about not just Trent, but anywhere on the pitch that you thought maybe we need a little bit adjusting here?
As I said, I think if anything, it was just that maybe a little bit of a tiredness. That last moment, that pass. It's more in a speed of play, right? You could sense it that sometimes players have to take 1 or 2 extra touches. But I thought, the good thing is, as we know, Bournemouth high press is very effective. It wasn't really for the most part here. Liverpool had dealt with that pretty well. The midfield itself, as we know, was powerful. You saw a little bit of frustration from McAllister. If you just look at the statistic, which I have of the midfield, it wasn't a terrible performance, but I think that power there was missing a little bit. Gravenberg, very, very good, did his job, winning a lot of the balls and all of that. But I think, I've seen better Soboslai, even Hakpo. I mean, they just, the work ethic is such that it's very hard for me sometimes to even have a go at these players, knowing how much it takes at this stage of the season. But they were off. The power was turned off just a little bit, I think. Otherwise, I do think that Liverpool probably would have scored maybe 1 or 2 in the first half, because at the end of the day, the talent trumps a team like Bournemouth. And as in our commentary, right, you've heard it. And when Iraola looked at his bench and Slot looked at his bench, and you saw even the difference, right? I mean, Nunez brought something, Curtis Jones brought something extra to the game in the second half, and that's often is the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you have somebody like Arne Slot, who seems to have such a well-organized machine there in Liverpool, at least for now. Mohamed Salah, Janusz Mihalik. I mean, it's not even what haven't we heard already? What are your opinions on this man? I mean, we talked about his numbers. It's just remarkable over and over again. Even when he has one quiet game, he'll come back with something else. He's just an incredible player and a serviceman, not just to Liverpool, but the Premier League.
It really is. And again, I don't want to go back to that, because I don't know how happy or unhappy he was, towards the end with Jurgen Klopp. I mean, we're not here, so I'm not going to guess. All right. But you could see that he plays differently with a smile, and he plays actually differently. I think I've always thought of him a little bit selfish, which is not a bad thing for a player that plays in front. Right. But I think he's more of a team player. I don't know if you get the same impression as well. There are many times that I remember he would have been trying to force a strike, or maybe dribble by an extra guy. Here he looks for others as well, and obviously assist. Those are facts, but just a little bit different. And I like this team in the build-up, because this team is, I think, more stable. That stability and not just results, but the way they manage the entire game is a little bit different. I don't want to say better, because Jurgen Klopp had some excellent teams in a different way, so both obviously get credit. But Mo Salah is different, and I think he is better than he's been in the past.
Yeah, and he leads in assists, which speaks to your point about how selfless he is, and which speaks to our point about how incredible it is to have such a leading goal scorer and yet still be so selfless. It's a remarkable achievement, and it's his brace and a controlled Liverpool side that take over. Next up, Janusz, for Liverpool is actually the second leg of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. How do you see them navigate this? Because to your point, if they looked a little, despite the rotation, losing to PSV in the Champions League, these matches are coming thick and fast, not just in the Premier League. How do you think Arne Slot will approach these next 2 games?
Yeah, I think, when you can win it all, you go for it. I mean, that was same under Jurgen Klopp. Remember, a number of years, they could have won treble, quadruple, and all that. You really don't think that way. Although I would have to imagine that winning the Premier League would feel the sweetest if it was me. And again, I don't know what they're thinking. That's what I want to win. I mean, that would have been 20th in the top competition, right? So you go level with Manchester United. I think, as we all know, this team has been an incredible surprise to be where they are right now after such a legend as Jurgen Klopp leaves. So I think that this would have been one of those titles that you talk for many, many years about. But I do think that the situation they're in right now, depending on what happens in the game tomorrow between Arsenal and Manchester City, right? I mean, they can start thinking about it. They won't admit it, but I think you're going to start thinking more and more and more that, when, not if. And that's the question. That, of course, could help you elsewhere, but momentum is such a massive thing, right? So I don't think they're going to be taking a League Cup or FA Cup for granted, because losses always have consequences. Yeah, maybe you're out of the cup, and some of us will say, well, everything is important to a big club like that, and they should have done better. But they have consequences mentally, and who knows with injuries. Liverpool has had a pretty decent season so far. Obviously, we don't know what happened to Trent, but they're going to deal with that, because that list got much smaller as of late. Joe Gomez was the only one, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I think missing. So they'll go steady. I think they know how good they are. And that's the most important thing, because you have to believe. And I don't know, I mean, before the season, I think they had to wonder, the talk about contracts is there, but it doesn't seem to affect anybody at this moment. I think regardless of what happens, who stays and who goes, if they are to leave, you want to be a Premier League champion for sure. And maybe Champions League, of course, that's important to Liverpool over the years as well.
Yeah, which is a really good point, because it's what Arne Slot keeps going on about. We don't care about the extracurricular. We care about what's going on right in front of us. And which brings me to my last question, actually, because transfer window, deadline day on Monday, of course. There's craziness all over. I'm sure everybody watching, you can join us on ESPN FC. We have the coverage everywhere. But Liverpool, very quiet. Thoughts on that? Approve?
I got used to it.
My favorite quote, Janusz, is from Da Vinci, where he says, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication." They're keeping things very simple here. What are your thoughts on it? You're used to it, you said.
Well, because in the summer, I mean, Federico Chiesa, the only player, right? You almost want to say nobody, because he's had injuries. He's back now, but so I would be shocked if you see a major signing now. Maybe a younger player, possibly I could see that, but I do think that first and foremost, right, they have to resolve the 3 players, because that tells you how much, if everybody stays, obviously they're going to get a massive pay bump, and they're already on a lot of money. So that affects your willingness, I suppose, to spend even more money to get somebody else. By not selling any of them, or not knowing if they're going to stay, other players look at that a little bit, I think, if we're talking about top players. So I would be absolutely shocked, even though Liverpool has done business in January and February over the years. I'd be absolutely shocked to see, bigger name to be signed over the next couple of days.